Wheel of Time Episode 1, the show for you if you like the category mature. Because the creators certainly do. This show got really intimate with the creators. I feel like I know everything about them, including the fact they can't write for shit. For instance, shall we go over the bits of the show which are actually like the books? That was fast, wasn't it? I mean, there is this bit.
Sea folk might be good at the game, Master Doman, but the Aes Sedai invented it.
No, you didn't, you silly bins. The Aes Sedai didn't invent trading. And because it's a lie, it means Moraine couldn't even say it unless she believed it. And if she believes it, she's a blithering idiot. But that's one of the cases where there's a line taken from the books that was said by a different character about a different topic to a different person. At this point, that line is so removed from the context of the books that it basically wasn't in there at all.
What?
But instead, we get this twisted mess which has seemed custom designed to piss me off. Welcome to Wheel of Time, where that guy looks as awful as I feel.
Power. It's meant for women and women alone. And when you touch it, you make it filthy.
And it's that belief that makes us focus this show on the Aes Sedai. Who would have thought focusing on side characters as your main characters would actually destroy your series?
What?
Before we start, shall we show you the scene with Rand? No, that's right, there's only one scene with Rand in it. The reason I should show it now is because if I blink later, I'll miss it. There he is. Yeah, he hung a lantern on a wall very slowly. It is literally this for his entire scene. Gripping for the main character of the entire series. I don't know what happened in the previous turning, but I think the Dark One won, and we're just in a permanent living hell. But we start with a clip that they released before the series was. They were so proud of this one, and I don't know why. There's a little girl playing outside. She sees a symbol of the Aes Sedai, but then the trollocs arrive. So she panics and runs inside. Do you want to judge the graphics? There you go. Blink and you'll miss it, but as I said before, when it comes to TV shows, I'm not too concerned about the graphics. Unless they're really awful, like the season 1 finale. There's no forgiving that. But she runs inside and there's a meeting around a round table. Is this Henry VIII? No. Did I say Henry VIII? This show really is affecting me, isn't it? No, King Arthur. He was far less fat. Although I don't know how King Arthur treated his wives. Either way, this at least references something from the books. The Dark Friends used to have meetings and they'd all be hidden. The idea was that you can spot different people from different cultures based off how they dress, their accent, and their various complexions. It was the idea that your culture imprints something on you and it's recognizable around the world. Of course, the show destroyed this in episode 1 of season 1, where they turned the 2 rivers that no one had been to for thousands of years into an international airport. What? So if no one is identifiably from anywhere because there's nothing particular about anything, this entire scene is useless. Whether they're a Seanchan with long nails, have identifiable rings, or identifiable symbols. Now the worst thing is when she does this.
Another.
You've just outed your mum to the most evil people in the world, love. Congratulations, you're going to die. Or at least be manipulated. But during this, the guy I'm assuming is a Shamiel has been talking about Rand. About how Rand released him from his prison. And now he doesn't want to kill him, but he wants to turn him to his side. Again, didn't happen in the books because the Forsaken was sealed away with the Dark One. But it doesn't matter about that because nothing else is true either. If I correct everything this show's got wrong, then I'm going to be here forever. So I refer you to the start of the video. That was fast, wasn't it? I have to say though, this seems totally out of character for any of the Forsaken.
Excuse me? We're in the middle of a meeting.
Not known for their family values. Oh, come along, little. Let me teach you about the evils of the world. You would definitely see that child as beneath him. It would be more like, if you can't shut that brat up and stop her distracting you, I'll have her killed.
Oh. Let me guess. There's something outside.
Yeah, it's the writer's talent. They left it at the door when they entered. But he decides to take the little kid.
A lot of people call me a monster too, you know.
That's because you are one of the most evil people on the planet. He says the other names he's known for.
Father of lies, betrayer of hope.
That doesn't make any sense.
Now, there was a Forsaken who pretended or thought himself to be the Dark One, so may have taken on his other names. But that was Balthamel, and he doesn't act like him at all.
You know why they call me and the other Chosen such hideous things?
Because they're accurate. Because you don't want an entire list of Forsaken, and so you've merged multiple characters into one person, and that's it? Who's then going to get an arbitrary name?
Because if they called me what I really am, no one would be afraid.
The devil. Oh yeah, and then Paden Fane just reveals his face to the entire litany of evil people in front of him. Now, yes, you could have an argument for that from the books, that he wouldn't be scared of them. But whatever he was in the books, he's not that in this either. In this, he's just, I'm a dark friend, yay! Although looking at it like he's a BBC presenter does at least play into the character very well. Gets worse though. Gets a lot worse. He's asking her, how do you prove you're not a monster? How do you prove that you're not good and evil? How do you prove you're doing right and wrong? Well, you do good, not evil? This isn't difficult, mate. It's not a big philosophical question for anyone who actually has morals. But as the creators of the show seem to have Californian morals, in other words, they're inverted, we get this scene where the guy who's impersonating the devil is actually a good guy. I'm sure it's not his fault, it's probably just his environment.
Look at this creature.
Okay, the proof it's evil is that you just called it a creature.
Part man, part animal.
X-Man, all animal. This is a literal cannibal that eats its own kind and boils humans and eats them alive. It's a pure killing machine with no redeeming features.
What if he isn't evil?
But he is evil. Can we just imagine a world where he's not evil and just make it spring into exist? No! This is like Secret Invasion. Why is the evil guy whining at me?
What if he isn't wrong?
He is wrong.
What if he's just hungry?
What if he's oppressed? Oh, what if the trolloc is hungry and therefore he just goes around eating humans alive and ending the world and bringing about the apocalypse for the devil? Maybe he's a good guy.
Look at me. Do I look like a monster to you?
Yes. The clues for that, he is standing next to a trolloc and having a meeting of dark friends with Paden Fane. The prosecution rests, Your Honour.
No.
You're really giving me BBC vibes again here, dude. Definitely giving me BBC vibes.
I knew I liked you.
It just keeps on happening. And so he starts to stroke the trolloc's face.
You see, it's alright.
What is happening?
Go on, you try.
Why? So then we indoctrinate the tiny child into evil by getting her to stroke the trolloc's face covered in blood.
What?
Now I get there could be an element of, well, dark friends would indoctrinate their children to be dark friends. Fine. A Forsaken wouldn't be doing this with a trolloc, nor would the Forsaken going around preaching about how good they were, as they mass slaughtered entire cities. All I'm saying is your morality is revealed by your actions, and you're stroking a trolloc's face covered in blood. So then we get the logo, which is trash. If anyone wondering why it's trash, it's like, well, the top circle makes sense because it's a snake eating its own tail. But if this is a snake eating its own tail, and therefore the sign of infinity, what are these things behind it? Because the snake is going in a circle, so what's the spiral made from? Some would say that's a really minor thing. I would say it means you don't focus on whether anything you do makes sense. Then we're off into the middle of nowhere, and I think we're mixing multiple things from multiple books to even get to this location in the first place. Well, the Aes Sedai used to go to a farm, and when on the farm they'd do hard work, and her hard work is fetching water. It'd probably help if her water wasn't for entirely selfish reasons. And Moraine, not above this. I just don't think she'd be doing it for anything so petty, because she's got to lug it all the way up there, just so she can fill a massive bath. You're gonna have to do like 10 trips, love. And Moraine is a lady. She's used to the finer things as an Aes Sedai, but she also travelled the world. This is a woman who's slept under a bush for half her life. And yes, she may have always looked preened and proper like an Aes Sedai should, but she was used to doing it by a river. She'd have better things to do with her time than this. Yet the first of a scene that tells me far too much about the creators. There's nothing to the scene, it's just literally her in a bath, again, crying. Whatever gets the rocks off, I guess. She's also doing her washing while she's in there. Seems to defeat the object, doesn't it? I know a bath as it is basically sitting in a soup of your own filth, but washing your clothes while you're in it seems to make it far worse. If you're going to use the same water because you don't want to waste it, just do them afterwards. Oh, I've got a hand! I didn't realise I had a hand. Oh, I've got 2 hands! I have no idea why this scene exists in the show. If I was being generous, it's because she's been severed from the source and so is exploring her lowered senses. It's like, I can't feel my hand, but I know it's there. The issue is, unless you've read much later in the books, you wouldn't be able to even insinuate that. So instead, what you'd get is... I'm crying because I put my hand in water. And you'd find this scene even worse than I do. Then we get Lan, who's also struggling, and he's just got basically nothing on. I guess they think what's good for the goose is good for the gander, except one's got a big muscly alpha bloke, and the other one's got... It's hardly a fair trade, is it? I also think Lan's only upset because Moraine's upset. Which isn't why he'd be upset. He'd be trying to top himself right now. Lan would have his own problems, but everyone in the show forgets it because what does his problems matter? Yeah, Lan would be a bit more than upset. He'd be riding off for vengeance. But at that moment, a visitor arrives. She's had loads of them. We cut over to 2 other Aes Sedai and their warders. Is now a good time to introduce you to Perrin. What? There's a fan art picture of Perrin. I mean, the likeness is uncanny, isn't it? It's almost like she was born to play this role. They have a conversation about ogling the warders. Perrin was always supposed to be living in her own little world, completely scatterbrained, never really paying attention to what everyone else was doing, and yet we're introduced to her like this.
Are you hungover? I'm speaking at a perfectly normal volume.
Hardly very Perrin, is it? The very first sentence.
Could you move to the left a little?
Perfect.
At least she's acting like a green. I'm assuming she's a green. Just by the way she's acting, not because she's actually wearing anything to do with the greenish art. In fact, as all her clothing is rimmed with red, if anything, you'd assume she didn't like blokes. But they talk about the amount of visitors that Moraine has. They're all bringing her information. This is something that happens at the start of the third book, and so I'm assuming they're bringing it forwards. Given that Moraine isn't in the second book, they're just like, let's just make it up. So Perrin asks Lan if Moraine's told him who they are or what she wants with them.
Don't look at me. She doesn't tell me any more than she tells you.
Well, that's a load of nonsense. She literally trusted Lan with her life. It's best if your right-hand man knows your plan so we can back it up. But then they introduced Bael Doman, who's a ship's captain, who's incredibly important. Why it was stupid that they cut him out of the first series, where he belonged. Don't worry, they do that a lot. The issue is, because Bael Doman's plotlines are literally driven by fate and the pattern, he's part of showing the audience that all of the characters, everybody is just a tool, a piece, that the Taveran and the pattern place wherever they need them to be. Now in this, it seems like Moraine controls the pattern. Instead, she starts by threatening him, thanking him for coming, and then he says this.
I didn't have much of a choice, did I?
Oh, everyone has a choice, Master Doman, and every choice has a consequence.
There are parts of the show that I really like that. Threatening someone in the most Aes Sedai way possible. But I'm going to say a fact which lets you know what I mean, even though you're going to have to interpret it that way. Then we get Egwene. You want a picture of Egwene? Artist's impression number 1. Number 2. And reality. It's like, can we go to the shop and look at Egwene? No, love, we got Egwene at home. Either way, there is an advantage to this, in that she's cleaning.
Way to set feminism back a few decades.
Always a bonus of the White Tower, giving people the education they need.
It builds character.
It certainly does. And no one needs their character building more than Nynaeve.
I have enough character.
Love, if you had a personality, it died and rotted away a long time ago. Now, we did skip away there, but I basically skipped past more cleaning. And she saw Alana getting out on with her warders. Both dudes. Like I say, you learn way too much about the creators' proclivities. They're trying to imitate Game of Thrones, it's just they don't have the taste to pick the people they need to. Except for the high-quality warders, of course. We get a guided tour of the tower. They have at least fixed the tower this time. It was a complaint from Season 1 where there was no one in it. There's people in it now. We get a warders' fighting pit, with the novices watching them fighting, both to admire them and to pick one out when they become an Aes Sedai. Now this just seems like really bad castle design, because she's walking along into the guys fighting. And then suddenly we're going down to the kitchens. Why are you making the novices that are cleaning plates go through the warders' training area? Oh, sorry, I've just beheaded a novice. You could argue it's so the novices and the warders had to meet early on, but these are guys with their tops off fighting. I don't think they needed any more reason to be around the warders' pit. She descends into the bowels of this show. We meet Nynaeve. Nynaeve's never smiled in her life. Permanent face like a slapped arse. Have you ever considered auditioning for Ahsoka? She starts complaining about cleaning, which is something, again, she never had to do in the books, as she was immediately raised to that I've accepted. In this, Rafe thought that all girls needed to clean for a few months first. Maybe it's not all bad after all.
All we've done since we signed the Book of Novices is clean.
Based economy.
Nynaeve literally never signed the Book of Novices, I'm pretty sure. The most powerful person brought to the tower in centuries or longer. And she was too old, really, to be a novice. But because everybody's too old to be a novice now, we've kind of destroyed her entire show.
Every single Aes Sedai has done it.
Not Nynaeve. That was why she was special. But then Alana comes in for a scene that wasn't in the books. But it does mimic something in the books, even though the thing it mimics wasn't in Season 1, and so it can't be in Season 2, but it is anyway, because this doesn't need to make any sense. She shows them how to cast a spell that filters dirty water, and says all of you are drinking your cleaning water. You can either have it purified with the weave, or not. Then she asks them what the 5 elements of the power are, as if that would be something they haven't learnt in months being a novice.
Air, earth, fire, spirit, and water. Good.
Why is it good? Even someone that hasn't read The Wheel of Time would know all those except spirit. And yet she's like, good! Nobody else knew that in the room. And she looks really happy with herself because she knew the most basic thing ever. Seemingly the only thing she's learnt in months in the tower. And we get to see the new magic, which is a bit different than Season 1. She's pulling in earth with her right hand, water with her left hand.
Now weave them together.
And she's weaving them together like she's... I don't know what this is meant to be. Overall, I don't mind how it looks. I would have preferred it if you'd weaved a pattern out in front of you like you're supposed to be doing, but I don't know how expensive that'd be, and TV show. This is also an improvement over the last time where it was just Aes Sedai channeling one colour, men channeling a different one. So Alana passes water. Drinks it. If I had to guess, the creators also would have been, okay, we're gonna leave that one. So everyone casts the weave, and then we get a comment from Egwene that she shouldn't even know about yet.
You have two capable hands. It would be easier if you used them.
I didn't come here for easy.
Yeah, but why are you even concerned if it isn't? Moving your hands isn't required, but it does make everything a lot easier if you do it. Instead, she's like, I'm just gonna sit here and fail at everything by not moving them because I'm a stubborn cow. Oh, none of this was in book 2, by the way. There isn't even any need to focus on this. This should be about Rand, Matt, and Perrin chasing after the horn and the dagger. Instead, we focus on the boring side characters. Should we check in on what our main character's doing right now? Gripping. So then we get to Nynaeve, who apparently has magically got a block all of a sudden that she should have had in season 1 but didn't. After she's gone through doing massive talents of literal impossible magic, like stopping Match and Shin, now all of a sudden, I can't channel unless I'm angry. Oh, at least it's canonical, but why has it happened like this? The reason for her block made sense before. It was because it was the only way she could stop herself burning herself out without being trained. And now it's because she killed too many trollocs. Evil monsters. They were about to kill everybody and cause the apocalypse. I stopped the apocalypse and now I feel sad. So she starts teaching her how to embrace the source. And I think this is why they've done it. It's for modernity, everybody. The way Aes Sedai embrace the source is to submit to it. Powerful. It will crush you like a river, and so you don't try and control it. You submit to it, and by submitting to it, it allows you to guide it like a riverbank. You can't stop the flow of the river, but you can direct it. That's how women channel in the Wheel of Time.
I'm gonna disable the pressure valve. Too late. Wait, no!
This book was written 50 years ago, and so it's very dated.
Made 85 years ago. Therefore, it's extremely dated. Women being in roles of power.
Yeah.
It's very Snow White, actually, isn't it? But at the end of the show, that's not how some Aes Sedai are going to channel.
It's supple. It's ready.
It's not working.
Try again.
I did try again.
I can't submit. I'm too modern. I've read Cosmo, and now I've got a block. I need a different way to channel. Then that's why they've had to give her a fake, stupid reason of why she can't channel.
No one should have that much power.
You can either embrace what you are or fear it.
It's afraid. It's afraid!
I can't channel because I'm too powerful and scared of myself. I'm just too empowered. Captain Marvel all over again. I was amazing. Then I got powers and became even more amazing. Then I forgot how amazing I was and had to come into my true empowerment by just realizing just how incredible I've always been. What an arc. Oh, the hero's narcissistic journey. And so now she's imposed her own block because she's scared of her own power, and that means...
You didn't say it had to be clean.
Did you take a stupid pill with your breakfast this morning, Admiral?
Yeah, to be fair, that looked like some kind of vegan cleanse, but it was disgusting. Oh, it's the wheatgrass. It gives you that extra kick. I'll have energy for literally seconds. No wonder she can't channel. She needs a steak. But she tells Sheriam about their training because she controls the novices, complaining about how Nynaeve can no longer channel, and then we get this.
Perhaps she needs a more effective teacher.
The Aes Sedai invented the game of houses. They're supposed to be witty and discreet, always maneuvering around each other. But at the end of the day, I'll settle for catty. I see Rafe is going for a more realistic interpretation of what the White Tower would be like.
There was a lot of eating. There was a lot of food.
Now it's your fault! Now it's your fault! I'm better than you! It turns out Liandrin isn't allowed to teach novices because she let one of them die. Now this isn't unusual. It's dangerous to learn the power. Novices do die.
Dangerous. Using it is dangerous. Any loss is too many.
But they treat it like it's the end of the world.
This tower used to be full, but year after year, fewer girls come to us, and with less power.
That's a line from the books. They sprinkle them around just to go, I remember that! I don't remember anything else. Largely because it never happened. Even now, we've got a load of people sitting in a circle just staring at the conversation. Why is she there? I don't even know who she is. Wouldn't be like, excuse me, love, we're having a private conversation. Can you piss off, please? We're having a cat fight. We don't need observers. It wouldn't be so bad, but you've literally centered her in the camera like she's the primary person of the scene. Either way, Liandrin talks to Sheriam. The world's too dangerous. We need all the power we can get. Her block must be broken, and I can do it.
In Ilian, Trolloc raids near Arafel, and another false dragon has declared himself in there.
I think she's just stolen a line. Is that what you've reduced this show to? Stealing better characters' lines and just giving them to Aes Sedai in the White Tower. Or Moraine, I guess. We had a load more interesting characters, and instead we've just got Aes standing around in a circle, stealing people's intellect. Who are you? I've never even seen you before. You do realise now you're here, the Sean-chan will carry far less weight. The entire point of their civilization in the books is that bald women were actually rare, and therefore them doing it as a cultural effect stood out, and now we're like, oh, just have it for anybody.
Something is coming, and we're not ready for it.
Well, you're a red love. You're not used to anybody coming around you. You'd find the very thought disgusting. That's your entire genre.
I'm sad and lonely.
Nynaeve is the single most potent weapon we found against the dark in 1,000 years.
See, in 1,000 years. That's why they didn't have her as a novice washing dishes, because she was far too important and needed to be trained. When you find someone who's the most powerful in 1,000 years, don't stick him in the kitchen. As funny as that may be. We could have trained you to save the world, but you're just too insufferable. Now you're scrubbing pots. So under that threat, Sheriam backs down and lets Liandrin teach Nynaeve a lesson, in every sense of the word.
Now get out of here, the lot of you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Over to Perrin now, the most boring man in the books. And the show. At this point in the books, Rand, Perrin and Mat are all on a hunt for the horn and the dagger. In this, it's just Perrin. Well, he's writing a letter to Egwene. How do these letters get to and fro between them without fast travel? Nobody knows.
You and Egwene are all I have, and that Rand.
Yeah, can't forget Rand, mate. Ooh, surprised you didn't mention him first. As we learnt in Season 1, looks like he has a thing for Rand. It's not canon. Never happened. Seems to be what they're setting up in this, though. What? Rand thinks he's got a thing for Egwene, but it doesn't make any sense. Didn't fit in Season 1. Whether they'll carry that on, we'll see. They'll have to meet up first, though. But Perrin sits around, whining. Basically all he's done for this entire show.
The hunt for the Horn of Valyria awaits.
How the are you alive? This guy got stabbed by the most evil dagger in existence. One cut fills you with evil, rots you from the inside, and makes you die in the most agony you've ever felt in your life. Impossible to survive from. There he is. He also got stabbed in the heart. He would have died anyway. What happened? Did you read past book 1 into the rest of the lore and think, oh no, what have we done? We can't explain that way. Let's just ignore it and carry on. It's not as if anyone's going to have seen Season 1 anyway. If they watched Season 1, they wouldn't be watching Season 2, so if we don't mention it, it's fine.
The hunt for the Horn of Valyria awaits.
Just to remind everybody that they are actually meant to be doing something in this story, and you need to be reminded because they barely appear. They don't have bonus holes, so they're just not that interesting, apparently, to the creators of this show. But then there's a bonus. There's a new character coming, yes, one that was introduced in book 2.
The new tracker Lord Ingtar has hired has put up a signal fire.
It's a sniffer. That's got to be Harin, a thief catcher with a short sword and a sword breaker. This was an incredible character. He could smell death. And via the stench, you could actually work out previous events and who died where. It was a very interesting and unique ability that few people had. But you know what this show's like. So Perrin and the Shienarans ride off.
Some tracker.
Uno starts complaining about the tracker. They're literally setting up the audience for a shock. They think they know where this is gonna be. You shouldn't be setting up the audience to brag about how much you're destroying the books.
I know very little about this new tracker, this sniffer.
They even call him a sniffer, which he was, because he can sniff out death. Well, believe me, Noel, no matter how little you know about him, the audience know a lot less. But before we meet the tracker, we get this glorious bit of Wheel of Time dialogue. It's like it was written by Robert Jordan himself.
Are you taking the piss?
I can't remember anyone in Wheel of Time using the phrase taking the piss. As far as I'm aware, not really an American phrase. It certainly doesn't fit into a sort of medieval fantasy setting, talking like I do.
No. Mate, he'd never.
No, mate, he'd never. Oh, I'm not going to take the piss out of you. Why, I'm man, Biker Grove. What has happened to this dialogue? Just think, if only you had some books that you could take inspiration from that had talking in it. We had the scenes of them chasing the horn. You could have just acted one out. But then in the distance, we see the Shienarans tracker, the sniffer, the guy who could only be Hurin. You know, that famous character from the books. The guy who has a bigger part than Moraine does in book 2. Welcome to Hurin, ladies and gentlemen. Should we get a picture of Hurin? There's one artist's impression of him with sword breaker in hand, like he's in the room.
Elias.
Pissing Elias! Why is it Elias? Elias, the guy who speaks to wolves, the guy who was supposed to be in Season 1, the guy who was supposed to teach Perrin about speaking to wolves. Meanwhile, in Season 1, Perrin just learned it on his own. The guy who isn't a sniffer. Unless, and this is what they've done, you read the word sniffer and thinks, well, he's a wolf, wolves have good sense of smell, and took the word sniffer literally. So now he can sniff death because he's like a wolf, and so can just smell carcasses from further away. But they haven't just done that. They've given him all of Hurin's powers. And you know what that means? Because Perrin is the same as him. Now Perrin has Hurin's powers. Because this show knocks over one domino and can't see the rest of them, and so is constantly trying to patch over all the problems in the lore they've created. We see what a picture of Elias looks like. This is as much an exploration for me as it is for you. Oh look, there's Elias. It really is like he's in the room. I can't see any differences there. That looks almost perfect as far as I can tell. But as Elias looks around, he sees Perrin and takes them down to the fire. What they see are dead bodies everywhere. And as far as I can tell, this is just to show you his new powers that he shouldn't have. Because Perrin looks around. His eyes turn yellow, which they're supposed to be all of the time, but I guess he doesn't want to wear contact lenses as one of the main characters, supposedly. And he starts to see ghostly images of what happened in the past. This would make sense if he was a sniffer, because they could sniff death and work out where everybody died and the actions that killed them. He's not a sniffer though, he can talk to wolves. These are two entirely different, unique powers that different characters had, and you've just gone, oh, that'll do. All you had to have here is Hurin and not Elias, and everything would have been fine. And the stupid thing is, if you introduce more characters, it means you can kill them off and actually give death some meaning in your show. Now, you can't kill any of them because they've all got to be 10 different people that are important throughout the entire journey. I can't even take this seriously because it's not a power he has. So he sees into the past and sees all the deaths, which he shouldn't be able to do.
There was a child.
Elias also can see all of this stuff, and so he starts telling the other people what happened. Of course, they think he can just do it because he's a tracker and don't know all of the different canonical characters that he actually is. We're the same. Maybe you can teach me why I'm a lunatic and wolves keep licking my feet. Dun dun dun. It's the symbol from earlier.
He must have been one of the men who helped Fane to Faldara.
It's the Shienarans symbol and means that he must have been one of the people that helped Fane into the castle at the end of season 1, which was actually at the start of book 2. Now, at least finally, this happened. Yay! The first scene from the books. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. Of course, Rand and Matt were supposed to be here. What's Rand doing? Shall we see how he's getting on? Oh, look, there he is. Oh, he's a bit closer to lifting his light onto the wall. Come on, mate, I believe in you. Move a little bit faster, you might get it up there eventually. But Uno is disgusted by the Shienarans that actually betrayed them, as their one mission in life is to defeat Dark Friends and evil, guard the borderlands from the Dark One. But he's like, no, we must bury them, give them respect, despite the fact that they were traitorous scum. Second bit from the books, congratulations. I celebrate your actual ability to read, for once. Back to Moraine now, who shouldn't be in this episode. She's holding Cuendelar.
Pieces of Quendia are rare, yes, but what makes you think I want this one?
It's broken.
And therefore they play a game of, I know what you want. I'm gonna play dumb. Don't be stupid, love. There's something severely wrong, and I think you'd be interested in it.
And you and I both know it has one defining trait. It's unbreakable.
It's kind of difficult to say it's unbreakable when it just looks like a meringue. I don't know whether I want to investigate it with the one power or lick it. But over to Lan now, and he's doing only one thing. The only thing he ever does. Because it's not as if he's his only deep, complex character with actual meanings and stuff to do. No, you see he's got dangly bits, and so that means he's meaningless in this series.
The bond made things easier. It's like a friend walking along with us.
The bond made things easier. They're not even bonded anymore. Lan has had his bond severed. We saw in season 1 how that ended. It was with a guy hanging from a roof. Lan? Oh, just train out with a sword a bit. What, you've ruined what could have been an absolutely incredible moment. An incredible storyline. Just because you never wanted to get rid of Moraine and really wanted to show her crying in a bath. So now we're going to all feel sorry for Moraine when he is the one who's suffering because he has swallowed her death, even though she's still alive.
She's tired, she's hungry, she's angry.
Oh, it's all about her. Who cares about me and my feelings? It's all about Moraine, who wasn't even in book 2 much.
She's angry, she's afraid, and now silence.
Well, at least there's an upside. If that's how much she whined before, just be thankful she shut up for once.
You don't strike me as a man who's afraid of a little silence.
Nor would be any man that spent his time around Aes Sedai. And then we get the most stupid suggestion that Moraine could possibly give him.
She wants me to leave.
So in other words, she wants you to die. Moraine is telling Lan that she wants him to die. As if a warder has his bond severed, that's what happens. He does that to himself. He makes that happen by walking into war. And in this case, you're like, well, maybe he'd be able to cope with it, because Moraine is still actually there, and so that's got to provide him some comfort. And she's like, no, just piss off and die, please. I don't want you around me, you peasant. What is going on? It's like the writers of the show don't know the lore at all, and certainly don't care about the effects that it would have on Lan.
You can.
Oh, Or you could just piss off and die. I don't care, mate. What is happening?
Aes Sedai needs a warder.
She's not an Aes Sedai anymore. She can't wield the power. You're not a warder anymore because you're not bonded to anybody. Right now, the only thing both of you are trying to do is not top yourself.
Elias manages fine without one.
No, as an Aes Sedai does not manage just fine without a warder. This isn't, I'm strong and independent. They actually relied on their warders. It was a requirement. Not just for protection, but when the bond broke, they often couldn't handle it. They're just strong, independent Aes Sedai. Maternity. This was written by somebody who truly hates the IP. It really was. You must be sickened when you had to read through the source material for this show. I can't imagine how triggered you were.
I'm not leaving.
You're almost as stubborn as she is.
Yeah, those typical stubborn men not wanting to go off and die. Pure spite and disdain that comes through the writing. I'm not even sure it's intentional, because that would only be true if they actually even understood what they read. They even read it, judging by this. But it turns out the Cuendlar is from the symbol that we saw at the start of the episode, or at least I assume it was. Otherwise, I don't know why they showed us that symbol.
A couple of months back, outside Cairn, your moondial there shattered one night.
Ah, yes. A moondial. Much like a sundial, but you can tell the time in the dark. What? Surely moondials aren't a thing. Identical to a sundial, but it's only accurate on the night of a full moon. That's the most useless invention anyone's ever made. Oh, I can tell the time perfectly. 1 day a month. 1 night a month. Every night after it becomes 48 minutes slow. Means you've got to do the maths just to work out the clock. More advanced moondials include charts showing the exact calculations to get the correct time. I'm assuming this is a picture of one of them. Dude, you've got to do advanced calculations in the middle of the night just to work out how long you've stayed up getting pissed. Also, it's not a moon, it's the symbol of the Aes Sedai and doesn't look anything like the moon, but we're going to let that go. We've got bigger issues to burn. So, how's Rand getting on? Oh, he's just started to walk up holding his lantern now. He's actually going backwards in time. He's stuck in a time loop. Maybe it's like Doctor Who. We only filmed 30 seconds of content for him, so we just put it on a loop throughout the entire series if anyone checked in. But he tells her, I know you've got men following me. She doesn't. And after they broke it, they scribbled something on it, which they needed to do. Bringing the fight from the first book into season 1 meant they missed the dark prophecy that everyone else found out at the start of book 2. That's what the writing is. Now, of course, Rand is supposed to know about it because he's the main character. And there are also lots of other people there that I can't remember, including Varyn. She's probably the only reason why she's at this farm, because she shouldn't be here either. So we're desperately trying to cover up the holes that we burnt into the actual canon with this mess.
The whole dial was covered in a poem when they found it, written in blood, old tongue.
He says poem, a prophecy of the future. In the Wheel of Time, the good side have a prophecy for them, and the dark side also have their own twisted prophecy.
We are union! We will win this fight!
Which for some reason they decided to tell the good guys about. Still not sure why. But he brings out a copy for her, and he says, the Cuendlar, that'll be 50 marks, and 5 marks for the poem.
5 for a poem. That could buy me the finest Omani racehorse.
Now you could argue that's incredibly clever, which is what they're doing, or incredibly stupid. She doesn't care about the Cuendlar, it's broken, it's useless. She actually wants the dark prophecy. Now if you want a better price, you want to make him think that it's less important. But if you want him to think it's less important, why are you choosing that to haggle over? If anything, draw his attention to that which he already thinks you want the most, and then he'll forget about the poem as well. It'll be like, I tell you what, I mean at most that Cuendlar's worth 40 marks, and maybe 1 for the poem. It's just a piece of paper, mate.
Right, true enough. 1 mark for the poem then.
I'm gonna mark you down on the only item you've actually had interest in.
But I'm not budging on the Heartstone.
You don't need to, love. She doesn't want that anyway, which you would have known if you'd actually paid attention to what she was talking about. But she takes her money, removes 1 mark. I'll have the poem, thanks. Looking that smug in a negotiation, not the best thing to do when you've won. Moraine actually prized her contacts. She's not supposed to be pissing them off. Her plan is always to use them in the future, but, you know, people in this show only think 2 seconds ahead. Memory of a goldfish.
But the Heartstone...
Sea folk might be good at the game, Master Doman, but the Aes Sedai invented it.
No, they didn't!
Are you taking the piss?
The Aes Sedai did not invent trading, or bartering, or negotiation. The Aes Sedai invented the game of houses in the White Tower because they kept playing politics and manipulating each other. Because all of them had to tell the truth, they had to come up with other ways to scheme and game. Everything was subtle, disassembled, and plans within plans, which became the game of houses when nobility saw that and started to imitate them. The Sea Folk have nothing to do with this. What's worse, she never said that in the books. That is a line from the books, although not about the Sea Folk. It specifically says the game of houses, and Moraine didn't say it. Tom did. And who did he say it to? Rand, the main character of the show. Although you'd never realise it, considering we haven't seen him yet. Should we see how he's getting on? Oh, Rand, you might think putting a light on a lamppost is impressive, but the Aes Sedai invented it. Of course, we couldn't have Tom saying it in this. In this show, they just kicked him off because he's got dangly bits. So we had to give his line to Moraine and pervert it beyond all recognition.
For a poem.
Piss off!
Sedai invented it. Be careful when you insult one.
You piss and deserve it, love. What can I say? I'm bound by my oaths. I can only tell you the truth. Don't worry, though. It gets worse. He's actually impressed by getting screwed over. Oh, you were so clever and outwitted me.
Serves me right, I suppose.
Girls will be girls. But finally, as he goes to leave, and in a part that I like, because it's actually Moraine, she asks him about the people following him.
Two men in black cloaks on horseback.
Did you see their faces?
No, the hoods covered them.
Mid-roll, everybody! Now, that wouldn't be enough explanation, but it is for this show. In the books, he would have gone, I mentioned how scared they were when they looked at him, or that his cloak didn't move. None of those things are in the show. None of the key features of mid-roll is in the show. So we've got to go, he's got a black hood! Nobody else wears a black hood in the entire universe. It must be a mid-roll. It's their only feature. So she tells him to go back to his boat, sail down the river, take a left or right and sail as far as you can. This is the last-ditch attempt to get him to where he needs to be. Now, in the books, he did that all on his own because the Ta'veren and the pattern forced him to go there. He is basically a ship in currents that he can't control and just washed along. He's useful, and so the Ta'veren nature makes him go where they need him. Of course, the creator isn't the strongest person in this universe. It's Moraine, which is why now he obeys her plan.
To Ilian, don't stop, and then onto the sea.
Who needs Ta'veren when you've got a walk one to do it for you?
Here are 10 marks for provisions.
That's the bit I like. When she realises he's in trouble, she gives him money for nothing because he's a useful contact. And she always looked after useful contacts, rather than letting them drown in the river like she did in the first series. And I liked his acting, because he's like, what? You haggled so well over there, and now you're just giving me the money for nothing. It's very strange, but it is very Moraine. And it does make up for how out of character it was for her to brag about screwing him over before.
What have you got me wrapped up in, eh?
The wheel weaves as the wheel wheels, Master Doman.
Yes, the wheel weaves. The spinning wheel. Not a water wheel like they try and say later in the series.
You're not a spoke boy. You are the water that turns the wheel itself.
The head of the Aes Sedai doesn't even know what wheel it is. They have the gall to write the wheel weaves as the wheel wills after they've just replaced the wheel in this part of the story with Moraine, who's saying the line. The wheel can do nothing before the power of Moraine. I weave as I will, it should have said. And then she looks upon the dark prophecy. Oh no, we're all really scared. And you should be, because it's Ran that needs to see it, not you. Then we enter peak farce. Oh look, here's Nynaeve training with a sword, because I've got dangly bits. She had no need to sword fight. She's a healer with the one power. The Aes Sedai didn't train with swords. That's why they had warders, you know, men, to do the men stuff. They were there to guard you with swords while you did the magic bits. What? Not in this world, though. I'm strong, independent, and empowered. I can do it all. I'm not just the most powerful channeler to have ever lived in 1,000 years, as long as you discount all the men that have lived in that time. There's an unfortunate truth they're probably never going to say. I mean, it is a rather awkward fact that we actually have power level charts of all the characters, and men and women are on different scales. But the Aes Sedai, the strongest of which is a plus 12, is equivalent to about a 7 for a bloke. So it's probably even more important you focus on that magic, because you're not going to be able to compete in swords. Because they're stronger than you in the power, but they're even more stronger than you at this. Not that you'd see that here. Standing up against two warders. Now, admittedly, they're probably going easy on her. I hope they're going easy on it. Because there is literally no way she'd be able to do that to a warder. This isn't just the power of ovaries. They become stronger and faster under the bond. The Aes Sedai don't. So she's fighting superhuman men. 2 of them. Now, admittedly, they beat her. And do kind of start taking the piss.
Taking the piss?
What? I knew we should have stuck to the wooden sword.
And then laugh at it. But it doesn't even touch how stupid the scene is to begin with. Even thinking that you'd put this in the show is laughable. I actually don't know how it got signed off, and I would fire whoever came up with it.
Why? She's good.
And a novice wouldn't even have time to do this in the first place.
I almost had you.
No, you didn't, darling. You're either the thickest person alive or the situation is a farce. Pick one. So she starts to whine again about how she can't channel, and there was this bit that I like.
I know you love her, but Alana's a real piece of...
Alana Sedai to you.
You're a novice, showing Aes Sedai the respect she deserves, you little bitch. It's just the look of, careful, love. I'm her warder. Have some respect. It's the first time they've shown that there's a line that you don't cross. And if you do, danger lies ahead. But then we get a really stupid speech. The Aes Sedai will derive torches for you. And it's like, no. You read the book, but you couldn't comprehend it, you mouth breathers. Yes, the actions were violent and induced pain, but the idea behind all of them was to stimulate some kind of emotional impact in order to find out the emotion that made her channel, and therefore break through it. They weren't hurting her for no reason, or to see whether she'd stay in the tower, although that was why they made them clean. One of the reasons.
Simple question. Why did you come here?
That won't help her at all. What matters is the block that was put in place to protect her as a child from burning herself out. But you deleted that from the story, and so now it's because I'm too scared of my own power. I'm just too amazing. Oh, I'm the most wonderful person in the world who can save the world. I'm probably the dragon myself. What you've given her is Rand's storyline. I'm so powerful, I'm denying who I am. Can't have Rand do that though, because what is he? Well, he's putting a light on a wall somewhere. Why are you stealing all the good bits from the men who are the main characters and just giving them to side characters that are irrelevant? So she goes looking for Egwene, not in a room. Instead, she's knocking on somebody else's door in the middle of the night. At this point, I'm like, well, that explains why she's not into Rand or Perrin.
Come in. Do you need a moment to get dressed?
I said come in.
You're knocking on Alana's door in the middle of the night. She ain't gonna care. Welcome to my legs. Luckily, though, I can actually show her on camera. Egwene gets down on the floor like she's some kind of 70-year-old pensioner. Seriously, how hard is it to get down on your knees, love? They specifically aged you up so you could get with Rand. You'd think you'd be used to it by now. And she tries to sort of recline like a lady. That's about as well as you'd expect.
Hungry?
You can eat my... Okay. We're not... No.
No, thank you.
Safe answer.
I wanted to talk to you about what happened this morning.
Immediate wires get crossed, considering she walked into her two warders.
Juggling two things at once.
I don't know whether she was juggling them. That sounds quite painful, actually. If she was juggling them, what was she even trying to do? Sword fight?
No matter what I do, it feels very messy.
It's only messy if you're good at it, love.
When I first started experimenting.
Just in case you're wondering, yes, that is that entire scene. Have you seen enough? In case you're wondering, not in the books. I don't even know what the show is. It's like they tried to do Game of Thrones, but just hired people with no taste.
I found it very difficult to split my focus.
I'm sure you did. The rhythm. You ever tried learning the drums? It'll probably help.
Used to one can be very difficult to open ourselves up to two.
At this point, it's just brainwashing. Not a family show. It's all I'm saying. I'm not sure when your audience is watching entertainment. Revulsion is exactly the emotion you're supposed to be spurring in them. But here we go.
Focus on your own pleasure.
Be a selfish bint. That always works out well. So we skip the rest of that.
I was talking about the weave from class.
Yes, I don't like to drink sewage. Although I wouldn't be surprised if you did that as well, love. But she gives her advice to focus on the entire glass rather than the individual grains of dirt, because you're probably trying to create like thousands of weaves rather than just one. And that's completely made up non-canonical BS. It's not the Force. I'm pretty sure they think the one power is the Force by how they talk about it.
Remember, things are messy before they're perfect.
And then I ate his face with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. It's far too creepy, love, it really is. Good over to Nynaeve practicing the weave. And Liandrin has come to help. Now, this scene is from the books, except it happened on the way to the tower, and I can't remember whether it was Liandrin or Siuan that did it. I think it was Siuan, but I can't remember. Either way, this is close enough to how it happened, until the end. She talks about her block, how her not channeling is very disappointing, and so I've come here to help you break it.
You're wasting your time with swords. It's beneath you.
True! And you'll never be as strong as a warder or any other man with a sword anyway, so why are you even bothering? It also would take a lifetime to perfect, like the men have been doing.
The warders have taught me more in the last 5 months than all of your sisters combined.
Yes, that's probably your fault, considering you can't channel! Literally just blaming everyone else because you can't take accountability for your own actions. You even said it was voluntary because I can't have that much power, nobody can. I never found Nynaeve this annoying in the books, but she's the most annoying character this episode.
Swords for the weak, for men.
The physically stronger, the literal stronger than you. Oh, but I've got the power! So do they. And when they have the power, they're stronger than you. You can't win, love. Well, you're meant to have different specialities, rather than talking about who's weak.
If a man came at me with a sword, I could meet him with another blade.
Now, this is cool. She even nails it by going, it would be entirely pointless for me to do this.
Better than most steel blades, but still not much use.
Why would I want to get into melee range when I can nuke him from over here?
Putting me in a vulnerable position.
Which is what the warder's for. To protect you. You stand there concentrating, nuking entire armies. Well, he guards you from anybody that gets through. And Nynaeve's like, I want to be with this little bit of metal. This is a stupid storyline. Why is it in the show? It's worse than anything in the books. Why is it in the show? But then we get this.
I want to win.
So she uses wind to smash Nynaeve up against a wall and completely pin her there. I don't know why we had to get the incredibly evil look while she's doing it. She's meant to be helping. She starts giving a little bit of advice on what Reds do, why we don't have warders.
They are a distraction.
That's not why Reds don't have warders, because they hate men. Oh, well, if I had one, I just wouldn't be able to resist banging him. That's not what the Reds are for. There's a deeper meaning to the story than your own depravity.
We can protect ourselves.
We can protect ourselves. We can't get distracted by their dangly bits. I mean...
Warders are nothing more than glorified dogs.
Even if that was true, they would be glorified, useful guard dogs. We actually have work dogs because they're useful. They do useful things. They protect you or round up sheep. You still haven't made an argument not to have one.
Sharing the prey, stroking their egos.
It's not really their egos that Alana's stroking, but I'll let it pass. But then she mentions Lan to wind her up and get her angry. And Nynaeve reacts with the characteristic calm that I would expect from somebody who's destined to be an Aes Sedai. I can't believe he didn't put the toilet seat down! Of all the people Lan had to fall for, I have no idea why it was you. But the entire point was to make her angry so she could fight through her block and use the power. Anger was what always overcame her block in the books, but now we're going to pervert it and talk about the one power as if it's the Force. Because that moment, Liandrin shields Nynaeve, which cuts her off from the one power. Now, I would prefer it came in over her head, as that was how it was always described. The one power comes from one direction into you, and this is like it wraps you like a cloak. A bit weird.
You can still feel it, but you can't touch it, can you?
But she describes the shield. I cut you off. You can still feel the source, but you can't touch it. Now, I'm still pretty sure that that's what happened to Moraine, that she didn't burn herself out. She just got shielded by the male half of the Force, and so she couldn't feel the one power through his shield. It would also explain why Lan hasn't gone off and topped himself. And the problem is, in the show, they're thinking she's been stilled, which means he should go off and top himself. And none of them seem concerned about why he's not acting how he should be.
It's making you angry. Use that anger.
This isn't the Force. You're not teaching her how to use the dark side. Through anger, your chains are broken. Because it gets worse. Yeah, oh, that's just one line.
My sisters would have you believe there's only one way to channel.
There is only one way to channel. This isn't the Force.
One way to become an Aes Sedai.
There is only one way to become an Aes Sedai. There's actually rules that you have to follow and tests you have to pass. Literally only one way.
But they're wrong.
They're not wrong.
We're here to learn, but about power.
That's the opposite of what you're here to learn. The entire point of the training of the Aes Sedai was to teach you to serve, not to rule.
I want to see you become so powerful that no man...
The one driving force Nynaeve has as a character is to heal. She doesn't thirst for power.
No woman will ever be able to take that away from you.
Unless that power helps her heal. Or kill Moraine, but in this she has no reason to kill Moraine.
Not even me.
So she leaves after giving her a lesson in the Force. It really seems like she's saying there's two ways to embrace the power. Either you can do it the Aes Sedai way or my way, through anger and rage. That's not what that is. It's her block she has to overcome with anger, and then she channels the same way as everyone else by submitting to it. But this is 2023. The word submit carries a lot more connotations nowadays, doesn't it? A lot of people don't like it. It bristles with few feathers. Can't use the word submit in this show. It's 2023. You can't have that. Now you can be dominant and strong and powerful and still do everything that those people over there that submit can. Oh, what a horrific message. And we only had to destroy the Wheel of Time to get it across. Back to the Shienarans, who are still burying the Shienarans because we can't give them anything interesting to do because we're too busy not talking about Aes Sedai that don't matter. These should be your main characters at the moment. So we then bury the Shienarans in shallow graves where they're still on ground, presumably because we couldn't be bothered to dig 6 feet for everybody. You do realize wolves will eat these people, right? Carrion. This is meant to be a good send-off. It's horrific. 2 of the people can speak to wolves. They'll be like, hey lads, come over here, we got some free food.
Why are you doing this for him? He betrayed you all.
I mean, just putting a body on top of some ground and leaving him, that's how you treat a traitor, isn't it? It's not very respectful.
All men deserve a proper burial.
Then why didn't you give him one? There is no respect in what you've done.
If it was up to Uno, he would have left his corpse to the vultures.
You did leave his corpse to the vultures. He's sitting on the ground. The vultures can still get to him. Have you got eyes? A brain? Like anything? When you wrote that line after you had this image in your head, did you put 2 and 2 together? Was this before you went on strike and so you just used AI to write it? Please, help me understand. So they basically whine for a long time. Like I say, at least they've made Perrin boring. That is true to life. Oh, the folks in the 2 Rivers were so nice to Paden Fane, and he was a dark friend. It's what dark friends do, mate. They betray you.
I keep seeing this image of him waving to my wife.
Well, you did kill your wife. Is that why you killed her? Because he waved to her one too many times?
And Layla, big smile on her face, waving right back.
There are rumours that she was a dark friend as well, mate. So, you know, we'll see if that plays out later in the series, shall we? And he's like, oh, I couldn't believe after all the kindness he still brought trollocs to us. Yeah, he's a dark friend. It's what he does, mate. You've known this for a long time. Why are you saying it now? You had the entire first series to whine about this.
I'm scared that when we finally come face to face, I won't be able to stop myself.
That's so blunt, and also clearly spoken after you filmed the scene. That was the best you came up with on the second try. Why would you stop yourself? He's a dark friend. Have at him, Perrin. Oh no, I can't be nasty to pure evil. Perrin, you're supposed to be one of the good guys. You're also talking to a Shienarans who would have absolutely no complaints about it. It'd just be like, he gets what he deserves, mate. What do you mean? It's not what he says, though.
Perhaps Fane had a reason.
What reason could you possibly have to sign your soul away to the devil, become pure evil, spend decades tracking down people to a tiny little village who have looked after you and been kind to you, and then bring in purely evil monsters to eat them while they're alive. Oh, pray tell, what reason could you possibly have? Oh, maybe he's good after all. I mean, I know he's absolutely pure evil, but maybe society did it to him, and it's not his fault. Oh, what utter cretins. The sheer contempt.
You may not like the answer, but you may find it worth asking the question.
I wouldn't piss on him if he was on fire. I wouldn't be asking him any questions. He wouldn't get a chance to speak because he's pure evil and he wants to destroy the world. But then Lan comes to Moraine because now he's going to whine at her. Why don't you tell me anything? I want to know what's happening. Very Lan behaviour.
Why was he here? What did you want from him?
He's an Aes Sedai, not allowed to have secrets.
Yes. Largely. He's your warder who you trust implicitly and therefore have no reason to keep anything from him. There are very rare occasions where Moraine would keep stuff from him. A warder can't really help you much if he doesn't know what you're doing. Now, you could argue that this would be one of those situations when you find out what happens later. One of the non-canonical reasons. But that just makes Moraine look really stupid, which is weird when you want her to be the main character in your show. Why would you make Moraine look like an idiot? That's what you've done. But it's true though, isn't it? Characters really are only as intelligent as their writers. So he loses his cool because she won't tell him an answer.
Don't smile at me.
This is a guy who has swallowed her death and would want to ride into battle, but instead we're going to be like, oh my god, I can't believe you shouted it, you're Aes Sedai. I do kind of like her response though, as it's just basically a power play. I'm going to completely ignore you, walk towards you to prove that I'm not scared, because we both know you're not going to do anything.
I'll have my dinner up here tonight.
And then ask you to do something, to test if you'll still obey me, because we both know you should.
Make it yourself.
That interaction I really like. I think it only makes sense if you've read the books, and if you've read the books, everything else doesn't make sense. Swings and roundabouts, I guess. But he storms off, likely what she actually wanted to happen in the first place, to piss him off enough so he leaves. Because she starts to spin around the prophecy, clearly thinking about it, and we're forced to go back to the tower, again, to people who are entirely irrelevant and boring, dull, and don't do anything. They get interesting later on, but for now you should really focus on the main characters. They start talking about how it's Beltane, you know, where all the men and the women in the village would get together. It's where we'd all partner up and dance and sing songs. We'd have fireworks. It's a year since we've left. It's a year since the start of season 1. But she reads a note from Perrin, how he's asking about all of them.
Matt will manage to stay out of trouble and join us too.
And it ends talking about Matt, who we then cut off to, and find out he's been captured by Liandrin, who's literally reading the same note word for word, except she leaves off the bit where Perrin asks about Matt.
Per dozen letters now, not a single mention of Matt Cawthon.
Clearly trying to make everyone think they've forgotten about him and broken him, which makes a lot of sense, because he looks like an entirely different person. The actor's changed, but we're clearly just not going to mention it, or mention about the end of the series. We're not going to explain why he left them at the ways, how we were building up to him going back for the dagger or anything. I'm just going to forget about all that. Instead, we just get this.
What do you want from me?
Well, there's a bed next to you, but she's a red, so at least you're safe from that. I'd gotta be honest, I don't think I could take another one of those scenes in this show.
I haven't touched that dagger in 6 months.
I don't know what that's got to do with anything, and it wasn't even mentioned in the conversation. Is he still attached to the dagger? Does he still want the dagger? Is he addicted to it? I don't know, because I only know the canon, and this is just entirely new territory, which we're just pulling out of their arse. So he starts crying, because of course he does, he's got dangly bits, they cry all the time. They're actually renowned for crying all the time. Yeah, they're not stoic or anything, it doesn't actually happen.
And I cried my eyes out.
Not in control of their own emotions. They're the ones that are renowned for just being an emotional, universally across all of society. They're like, I wish they'd just stop crying.
When am I not crying in public? It's so upsetting.
And you get modern entertainment and they can't stop it. It's just pouring out their eyes. It's like someone's permanently underneath them just cutting onions.
I'm not a threat to you.
Well, at least he's being honest. The only thing he's a threat to is this IP.
Mary Beltane, Matt.
I take it back. Maybe she does want to dance around the maypole with you after all. Better luck next time, mate. What? So for Beltane, they all start making lanterns. Perrin makes one, has a little cry. Every occasion, it's so at least it's realistic. Yeah, wipe your eyes, mate, you puss. We get Matt, who has access to fire. I'm not sure I'd be given a captive fire, but here we are.
Miss Ran so much.
No, you don't. You dumped him in episode 1, love. I don't know why you're crying with your crocodile tears. Oh, I just missed the attention that he'd be giving me, even though I couldn't stand his presence.
I complain about this place. I'm not going anywhere.
that's a lie. You better be going somewhere, otherwise I'm gonna be pissed. And Matt takes down his little cabinet and starts to chisel at a wall to take the bricks out to escape. Oh, it's like the Great Escape all over again. What a great Christmas story. They make a lantern. Perrin made 2. I don't know why, he's only supposed to make 1. So then we get the main character, the person who should be throughout the entire show, with his own little lantern. Finally, after all this time, gets to lift it up, and like the strong man he is, the person who's destined to save the world, hangs it on a wall. Oh, that's the look of a man who can save the world. The characterization in this one single shot is astronomical. That's the last time you're ever going to see him in this episode. I hope it was worth it. Anybody that defends this show, you only need to ask them, where the pissing hell is Rand? It's like making a Witcher show without the Witcher in it. Hang on. What could these 2 terrible productions have in common? I can't work it out. Back at the farm, they're eating. Lan wants to wait for Moraine to turn up. I'm sure she'll turn up this time. Everyone else gets annoyed because they just want to eat. And they have great advice for the guy who has swallowed Moraine's death even though she's still alive, had his bond broken, and at this very point has no other emotion inside him except an extreme desire to die. And the Aes Sedai understand this because it's a magical bond. Their warders may have died in the past, and when that happens, they, in some small way, understand what he's going through. And so, they say this.
Lan, I think you're taking this all too personally.
That's gaslighting. That's what it is.
Well, I'm sorry if his bond being broken and his magically ingrained desire to fight people to the death is just a bit inconvenient for you, love, at the dinner table. You inconsiderate cow. But that's what they do for the rest of the dinner table. Everybody doesn't care about, don't you understand? Moraine's lost the power. She's upset. And not a single person is acting like he is affected by it at all, having his bond broken.
There's absolutely nothing to do with you.
Why don't you just piss off, love? And whenever you think you've had enough, just piss off a bit further.
It only affects you if you let it.
It's a magical bond which is causing him to want to walk across the earth. I don't think you've read the books. You've read the books and understood the books. You just don't care about them and despise them and want to change them and fix them. But you can't because you don't have any talent.
I am unequivocally unaffected by it.
You are not a warder.
You are not her warder. You have nothing to do with Moraine. You're just an Aes Sedai. Just like, well, I don't care about her. Why do you? I don't think the writers have ever had a social relationship in their life. Just go through life caring about themselves and their own power.
But she's living in my house. Our house.
I tell you what, why don't we take over your house and you live out there in the woods? Then we'll see why you should care about it if you only care about your own property.
Technically my house that I allow you.
It's not even her house. We've essentially got a squatter telling a warder that he shouldn't care about his dead Aes Sedai. Oh, she's not dead. Yes, but magically that's how he'll feel. So then we get a description. Womansplaining to Lan about what it feels like to be cut off from the source. He will know this. He's a warder. And even then they get it wrong. Oh, it's a really traumatic experience.
It feels like the most brutal form of assault.
It takes away your senses and it makes the world feel less colourful. It's essentially just like a feeling of depression. The warders losing the Aes Sedai is worse. And if she is shielded, like I've said, then it's not even that bad. And yet they describe it like, well, I'm sure you can imagine what they're angling at.
Most women never recover. Most women die.
You're talking to a warder who's had his bond broken, who are renowned for very few of them ever surviving. Far more Aes Sedai survive their warders dying than warders survive their Aes Sedai dying. And yet you're womansplaining to him about how she's worse off than him. Literally have no comprehension of the source material at all. And they're like, oh, Moraine's so strong though, she's surviving. Lan is sitting in front of you, you daft cows.
Trying to force her to speak. It's time for you to be quiet and really listen.
Yeah, Lan, why don't you just shut the up? You know, Lan Mandragoran. The guy famous for being stoic and silent and a man of few words. The man who has lost more in his lifetime than any of these three could even possibly comprehend. And they're like, why don't you just shut up, you useless dangly bits?
I think that's the first time in my life someone's told me I need to be quiet.
Because it's just my privilege, I guess. Whereas Moraine, loads of people have told her to shut up. I mean, at least if you were talking about Nynaeve, it would have been believable. So he takes a plate with food, goes into her office, and she's not there. Because she's saddling a horse to ride out, alone, presumably because of the Dark Prophecy. Got no powers, no warders. She knows Midral, we're following them there. Why are you making Moraine stupid? So she leaves, rides through the forest, until appearing from the shadows is a sword. The mid-roll, screaming and slashing, scares the horse and throws her off its back. I would kind of expected Moraine to be a better rider than that. So she's running away and hides behind Stonehenge. They're all searching for her. This goes on quite a while with her hiding behind rocks, them searching for her, until she pulls out a dagger, and they aren't just walking around looking for her. They can enter a shadow and teleport into another shadow, and so that's what you see here. Essentially means it should be very difficult for her to hide from them in the dark. Doesn't matter how far you go, they can just teleport to you. Somehow, despite this, she looks over her shoulder as if she knows where they're about to teleport to, because he just peeks out of her shadow. It's like, how on earth did you even know he was coming out from over there? But she makes a scrape with her boot to alert them to where she is, assuming that he will teleport into the shadow next to her, and she's ready to stab him when he does. And she takes him out before he has the chance to do anything, basically the only chance she has. Bearing in mind that Lan is the greatest swordsman in the world, and so would have been great at fighting mid-roll, at least in theory. What happened next surprised me, to be honest, as she backs up and immediately gets caught by one of the mid-roll herself. So now she's on the floor, entirely defenseless, and basically about to die. Nothing she can do in this situation. So the mid-roll does the most stupid thing he can possibly do, and raises his sword ever so slowly. I'm gonna finish you any second now. It's really slow, it's stupid. It's a good job he took so long, just so Lan had the chance to find him. Now, admittedly, Lan does a great job. He dives in, slashes him, jumps off a rock, slashes him again, and beheads the creature immediately. It was great. It's exactly the kind of swordsmanship and quality you'd expect from Lan. It's the last bit of quality in swordsmanship you'll get from Lan, because I was surprised they let him do that, and then they promptly humiliated him, which is what I expected. Because there's more mid-roll. He's not finished yet, and he's got to fight him. He picks up a second sword and gets ready to fight two of them at the same time. There's a cut about every 0.5 seconds, so you can't really tell what's going on. The more often you have to cut it, the more confusing it gets, which means you can't see how bad it really is. Everything's happening so fast, if you didn't pause it and check, you're probably not going to have that much of a problem with it. The problem I do have, though, is he keeps losing. There are several more exchanges, but he's already got stabbed. And so when they teleport away and come back, he enters another exchange with them, dodges a sword on a rock. Oh no, they've just slashed him across the back again. He's actually a crap sword fighter. This is the best sword fighter in the world. He's getting battered. So he carries on fighting, but at this point, it's all over. One tries to eat him with the massive mouth and teeth, and he gets slashed on the arm again. This time falling to his knees because he's been absolutely annihilated by them. But he sees Moraine and is like, look, I've got to defend her even if it's going to kill me, and pulls up just enough energy to stand back up before he starts fighting again. Now, admittedly, I think this is a pretty cool move, albeit in the dark, so it's quite difficult to see. He flying kicks one in the face and then uses the momentum to cut the other one's face off. Unfortunately, he then gets slashed in the back by the other one and loses the fight. Because we couldn't have Lan being competent. Upstaging an Aes Sedai? Can't have that. He's got dangly bits. Imagine the bad press. Sends entirely the wrong kind of message. So just as he's about to die, and therefore both of them, Moraine tries to channel, and things actually start coming to her, which is surprising, considering she's meant to have been either stilled or shielded. Under neither of those options should be able to channel, unless it is a shield, which is unraveled over time, I guess. But she's surprised as anyone when she manages to actually start to channel. But no, it just turns out to be the Aes Sedai who've found them, magically. I don't know how. And the channeling was theirs all along. Or at least that's what Moraine now thinks. So they produce a whistling noise after shouting, "Cover your ears!" Which makes the mid-roll go, "Oh no, I can't do that." Are they supposed to have incredible hearing? If that's in the books, I can't remember it. And then she uses fire, and you're like, oh, she's going to set him on fire. She's going to just nuke him. They are allowed to do that against the minions of the dark. I don't know why she doesn't do that. Instead, she sets her warder's sword on fire, and he stabs him with a flaming sword. Set him on fire yourself. Cut out the middleman. I don't know what this was meant to be. Seems a bit needlessly pretentious, that's all I'm saying. And we end with Lan going, "What are you telling me?" Because it is a little bit weird if multiple mid-roll are after you in the middle of the night when you can't even channel. So that was episode 1, and as I film this, I've not seen episode 2 or 3. I don't know what's in them. I don't really know what was in that, because nothing from the books. We've got our 3 main characters, Rand, Matt, and Perrin, of which only Perrin is where he's supposed to be. Rand was barely in it, Matt was barely in it, when we spent most of our time in the tower waffling on about nothing. Now, there was some bits of the tower in episode 2, but it was mainly to forge the bonds of friendship between Nynaeve, Egwene, and Min before other things happened. I don't know what this mess was. There wasn't any need for it, it didn't add anything, and it just wasted a load of time. You're squashing books 2 and 3 into one season. You don't have time to waste. Why are we waffling on about things that don't matter? A significant part of the interest about the Aes Sedai is they're a bit mysterious, and you find out about them over time. But it seems that Rafe's like, they're the best things in the books, and they're not. They're just not. And focusing on them when their storyline just isn't that interesting means you have to destroy the books, you have to destroy the canon, and you replace it with a really weak storyline that you're having to make up yourself, and you're not talented enough to do it. Nobody cares. You had an IP which is one of the biggest fantasy IPs, and you were like, no, we'll just get rid of all of those fans over there because I, as Rafe Judkins, can make my own user base. Dude, you can't even pick people that your audience would want to see in your Game of Thrones scenes, let alone write an entertaining episode. But it wasn't as boring as Rings of Power or Secret Invasion. Might have been because I was more annoyed. I was watching more intently because I was watching my childhood IP burn to the ground in front of me. But I will admit, it's a better put together show than Secret Invasion and Rings of Power. It's just when it comes to the destruction of the lore, you may have just burnt the books to the ground. I don't even know why you bothered reading the books in the first place, because it's not in your show. The only thing you're doing is stealing storylines from far more interesting characters, stealing lines from far more interesting stories, and giving them to the Aes Sedai and Egwene and Nynaeve and Moraine. And by cutting out the start of the books, which was like a coming-of-age story, you've basically ruined the characterization as well. So congratulations. You've already got a season 3. Congratulate you on that. Making millions of dollars for yourself, lining your own pockets at the expense of Amazon, who still, to this day, don't seem to realize that the problem is the people involved. But maybe one day, between them, someone will come to the realization that destroying the IPs that you buy isn't a good idea, and you should probably stick to the pissing source material. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.